Welcome to More Than Our Story, where our mission is to inspire people through sharing incredible stories. I'm Daniel Height, and today Simon Guérard joins me. Simon is an ultra runner who you can follow on his YouTube channel as he races towards 100 mile plus races. Simon, I'm thrilled you found time to be here today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So you just completed Leona Divide this past weekend. How did that go?
Uh, but it went as it usually goes, which means relatively okay until it was not, and then pushed through it a little bit, suffered through the night, but we made it, and I'm injury-free and happy, so that's what matters.
Excellent. Great to hear it. So how did you get started running and doing all these long distance trail runs?
Yeah, I think it's been a little bit progressive. Growing up with my family, we're very outdoorsy, hiking, camping. That's what we would do in the summer. I'm from Quebec. Being in the outdoors is very traditional. We would go maybe a week camping and just hiking everywhere. So I always had this love of being out there. And growing up, then you do longer and longer distances, and then you do 20 miles, 25 miles hiking, and then you realize that that's kind of the limit you can do if you're only walking. So I start running a little bit just to cover more distance. You find a hike that is 35 miles. You don't want to do it in 3 days. So you decide, I'm just going to run a little bit of it, and progressively got to longer distances and really appreciate the mix of taking your time, enjoying nature, but at the same time moving efficiently. I'm also kind of lean naturally, so it kind of came to me naturally to trail run. And then in parallel, there's my work has always been pretty intense. Did a master, PhD, did that in Europe, and eventually moved to consulting, where my work was literally taking all of my life. And I realized I need something more than that. And that's where I started getting a little bit more serious into ultra running, doing some races in the weekend, really trying to squeeze as much as I can in a weekend. And that's where the 100 mile for me is a great distance. I've done some 200 miler, but you don't do 200 mile in a weekend. You need to take the week off, which is a little challenging. But the 100 mile, like last weekend, Leona Divide, took my car Friday, drove to the start line, ran, took my car back Sunday. Nobody at work could tell that I did that, other than I'm limping today. But yeah.
So what is it about trail running that has you so hooked?
Yeah. So I think the nature and the views is definitely what attracted me to it. There's an aspect of challenge that is important, but it's not necessarily my main driver. I don't necessarily care about being faster or going longer than other people. That's something I'm not necessarily seeking. I want to grow myself. I want to push my own limit, but there's kind of a limit to that. And my limit is if it feels unsafe or if I'm injuring myself, that's kind of the ceiling. And I don't want to do more than that. I think I've reached that. I race a lot, but I don't run fast, which helps me be a little healthier, heal faster, and don't have injury. So that's where my drive is. I've reached that ceiling of performance, I guess, or the distance that I want to do. But then what really hooked me is the community, and even just that non-competitive nature. Of course, you have the pros and you have some people that are non-pros and are very competitive, and everyone is welcome. That's totally fine. But for a vast majority, we're just hanging out, having an adventure together, doing something kind of crazy, but together. Through the night, over the weekend, we were hanging out. We were all suffering, and we would cheer each other. We would help each other. Someone had a headlamp dying, another crew helped them. So it's not I want to beat you, it's I want to do this, and we're doing this together. And the supportive nature of the community is really appealing. And when you compare that to why I got a little bit more serious into ultra running, I was just grinding through work, and then you don't have this human connection. It's just work, 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 work. And then I have the total opposite of that through trail and ultra running, where you have this connection, where you are someone who matters for who you are, not what you're producing, not the speed that you have or the distance that you have, but just for you. And that was very refreshing.
Speaking of refreshing, you were based in Montreal or Quebec, I
Mhm.
think you said. You're now in Carlsbad, that's Southern California. I'm assuming geographically that's a lot more opportunistic for you race wise.
Yeah, for sure. there's a lot of nature in Quebec, right? Like that's not an issue, but the East Coast is different when it comes to trail running. It's much harder trail. It's it's not so runnable, which I love sometimes, but on the West Coast, and we're driving distance from Arizona, which has Aravaipa, which is a huge race organization. They have a bajillion race. Like this is the big race organization. So being so close to it, a lot of drivable races through the winter. And then when summer comes, very often we go to Colorado, which it's a little bit far to drive. So we've spent sometimes summer there working remotely. But otherwise it's relatively close. So yeah, a lot of great opportunity. And that's probably one of the things that I've appreciated the most moving to the US is I felt that in Quebec we have wonderful nature, and I guess that's true for Canada, but Canada is huge, right? We have wonderful nature in Quebec, but it's kind of all the same a little bit. Like it's one ecosystem. Of course, there's subtleties, but here you will have the desert around Phoenix with the huge cacti. You will have the red rocks of Sedona. You'll have the canyon at Zion, but then you have mountains like the San Juan in Colorado, the high peaks, high mountain above tree line. So you have such variety that it's really refreshing, which is obviously something that I enjoy in trail running, doing different types of racing all the time.
So you live in Carlsbad with your wife, Nora, who appears in almost all of your videos, running, pacing, or crewing with you. How far out do you guys have to plan basically your year's schedule?
Yeah, that's a tricky one. So yes, I'm living with my wife, and she's my number one fan and supporter. But she's also racing. She had a huge injury recently, so she had to come back from a major ankle injury, 3 months without running. It was pretty gnarly. But she ran her first 100-mile like a month ago from today. So was really proud of her. Not a race like we went in the park like it was 2020. You know, to not say the magical world that would ban us from all platform, but it was like 2020. Went in the park by ourselves, parked the car, had our own aid station, did little loops. So she did it, which is great. When it comes to planning, the hardest part is that I race about 100-mile every month. I mean, it's probably every 3 weeks is the average, and some of these races you have to sign up a year in advance. So making the calendar probably takes me like 3 months, and usually starts around October, and then we'll finish around January when you have some lottery-based race that, yeah, you can put your name in Western State, but you're probably not going to race. So you should have a backup plan. But if you sign up for a race already and then you get picked, then you just lost a bit of money. So it's a bit of a moving thing. And then the other aspect of that is that since I race so much and I'm fairly realistic, that's definitely an angle I try to have with my channel is not glorifying, suffering for no reason or injury or bad practice. But the reality is sometimes 1 week after 100-mile, I can race another one and my body is not 100% ready, but it's to a point where I know I can do it. But sometimes that's not true. Sometimes it will just take longer and I don't have an explanation. It's just the nature of things. So if you plan too tight, it's very risky that then you have an injury and then you race injured and then you injure and your year is wasted. So I try to build some flexibility. Sometimes there's some gaps that I might sign up for something last minute, but that's like, in June, there's a race that Westplate is doing, which is another YouTuber. He's really great. And he raced a lot of 200-miler. I would love to do his race, but it's close to something else. So I'm kind of waiting to see how I will feel. So a moving target a little bit. But yeah, now it's fixed. And the next 4 weeks the 5 weeks, including last weekend, are pretty intense, but that's all last minute sign up. Actually, I was not planning to do it like that.
So the next 5 weeks you're referring to, it's 4 races covering 540 miles. I think I saw you commented last night on one of your posts. There's around 100,000 feet of altitude gain. How do you prioritize recovery with such a packed schedule?
Yeah, that's a very good point. I don't think I'm a gifted runner, although I'm not bad, but I am a gifted recoverer, and it's probably because I take it seriously. But that's really the one thing that I'll have to be careful is when, at least for me, and I guess everyone is different, but when I run 100-mile, there's definitely always something that will slow you down. Like there's some pain somewhere that is the reason why you're not running anymore all the way to the finish line. Like I don't think anyone doesn't have that at some point. Maybe it's your knee, maybe it's your ankle, maybe you're tired, maybe you're sleepy, maybe there's blisters, maybe it's chafing. And some of these things, it's if it's chafing, within 3 days you'll be okay. If it's your ankle, oh, I don't know. If it's your knee, ah, man, you're in trouble. So first, it's understanding, okay, what's the damage that happened over the week and over that race, and let's really monitor that. And then the other aspect of that is in the first 24, 48 hours, which I'm still kind of in this window, your muscle everywhere hurts, and it feels like you're in a concert, like a really loud, like heavy metal concert, and so much noise, and you hear everything. That's the pain, and it's everywhere. And you have your phone, and maybe you put an alarm clock on your phone and it's ringing. There's no way you're going to hear that at the concert. But as soon as you step out, you'll notice that ding, ding, ding that just keeps going and doesn't go away. And I feel that an injury is a little bit like that. Like sometimes what is the most painful is something that's totally normal. It's your quads. They're banged up, but they're going to heal. But that little pain that is just maybe a 3 out of 10 in your ankle, that really was not your main concern sometimes. It just stays constant, whereas everything else kind of improve and the pain reduce. And then 3, 4, 5 days later, that's where you notice that, hey, this thing is not moving. And that's when you have an injury. And that's when maybe you have to do PT or something like that. So monitoring that is important. The way I'll do it for this sequence is I probably won't be running at all in the next 5 weeks, other than the races, which even then it's a lot of walking when it's that much. But I'll probably be cycling. I'll probably use the sauna. I'll probably be walking a lot. Like probably after this call, I'm going to go walk maybe a mile or two just to move a little bit. And I'm sure there is science behind it. I don't know the science of that one, but I feel that just movement creates blood flow in your muscle, and blood flow is important to just bring nutrients. So you're building back your muscle, also take out all of the trash. So instead of just sitting down and not doing anything, just moving a little bit. And for sure, for all of the joints and ligaments, it's tight, it's inflamed, and movement helps keep it a little bit loose. Which you even notice in a race. If you sit down in a race for 20 minutes at an aid station and you get back up, you're all stiff and you think you're gonna stay like that forever. It loosen up by moving, and that's what I'm trying to do through recovery.
You mentioned cycling. Do you incorporate any other forms of cross training or resistance training as a recovery?
Not really for recovery, I would say. Recovery it feels more like an art than a science or training for me, and I really just do what feels right. And it's hard to describe because obviously people want to know, like, what do you do that is magical? It's like, well, shit, I don't know. Like, I don't think I do anything special. Like, people was like, I use this herb or like this, and it's like, I don't know. I'm not selling you anything, and I don't think anything special would work. When it comes to rest and strength, I think it's super important. But right after a race is a little too early for that. Sometimes I try to do some stretch, like if my IT band or if my Achilles are particularly like sore, I try to stretch a little bit, not too harsh. Like, I don't know, I have the fear that I would just pop, but just trying to stretch a little bit, dynamic stretch, a little bit of movement and kind of pushing a little bit further, helping it get back to normal. But strength training, mobility training, these sorts of things, I try to do more in my real training when I have enough time to recover, which typically for me is about a week, and I keep myself about a week before a race. So 1, 2, 3 weeks when I'm racing a lot, that's where I'll try to do about 1 or 2 strength session and mobility session.
So I mentioned at the top that you have a goal to reach 100 mile races. Provided you can remain injury free, do you have a schedule or a timeline in mind for achieving that goal?
Oh, not at all. The goal is pretty secondary to everything. It used to be that I said I'm racing 100-mile every month. Although very quickly I was like, well, it's not exactly true. It's on average every month. Like, I'll do at least 12 a year, but there's no race in November, so screw it. Like, I really don't care. I think there's a trap with running streak that is dangerous a little bit. Like, I see that with people that have like a 4-year running streak. I run every day, and then you get an injury, and then they run on the injury because of the streak, which I'm like, well, this is dumb. Like, you should just rest. But I understand that now you have this 4-year streak. Like, you're not going to stop for that. But it can be milder thing. It can be your child has a play, you know, and you just don't have time to run, and like you have to sacrifice family or running your silly streak. I don't want to do that, and that's true for racing. Like I don't want to be in a situation where I'm forced to run 100-mile this month. Maybe I don't want to. There's no race that exciting, but I have to do it. Like I do it for fun, and there's definitely period of, like I say, November and December. Like I'm sorry for anyone organizing a race around that time, but I have yet to find a race that I really like in that time period. That's always my struggle every year. I'm like, man, there's nothing. Like there are races, but it's not my type of race. It tends to be more flat, fast course, and that's not what I want. I want the mountain, but obviously the mountain in November, December, that's the worst time to go probably. So you don't do that. So there's no race that are appealing to me. So then I transitioned to the 100 mile, which I need to find a better way to say it, because I feel it's a mouthful, like 100 mile. Blah, blah. But it's just to have like kind of a goal. But right now I can race a lot. We don't have children. We will have children. It's just a matter of time. And as soon as that happens, like I'm not I'm not gonna take the car over the weekend and say, guys, I'm gone for the weekend. Like there's things that are more important than running 100 mile. So right now I can enjoy, you know, right now I can have my YouTube channel, help people, and for sure that's gonna take a back seat as soon as we have children. When exactly will that be? I don't know. Hopefully soon, but it's we're enjoying life in the meanwhile. So yeah.
So you're planning on doing the Triple Crown of 200s this year. Can you take a moment and explain to everybody what that is and how you might intend to train differently for those?
Yeah, I mean, I can start by the end and say, no, I don't plan to change anything. If I want to win race, maybe, but since I just want to finish, sorry, I don't care about changing anything in my life. But so the Triple Crown is 200-mile race organized by Destination Trail, which is kind of the big 200-miler organizer in the US. They do pretty good job usually. The three races, which order, it's a Tahoe 200-mile. In theory, you run around the Lake Tahoe, but for quite a few years, and I think this year is still true, there's part of the section that is closed. So then it's kind of a sea that you go back and forth, which is still wonderful. Having run around, well, close to Tahoe, it's wonderful trail, and the view is absolutely great. So really excited about that one. Then we go to Bigfoot, which is in Washington State, 200-mile again. I heard it's the most gorgeous course where the landscape and the scenery really change. Like you really feel the distance. Like you start maybe more towards a volcanic rock, and then you end up in the big forest, and you go through mountains. So you see the change in ecosystem, which is really cool. Like it gives you the feeling of, man, I've been really far. Like it's not repetitive. And then the last one is Moab 240, which is a pretty famous one. That's the one that Courtney won straight up a few years ago. Goggin was there, also talked about it. So you do these three, and then you have the Triple Crown. I'm not necessarily a specialist when it comes to 200-miler. I've only done two before, and that comes back to the training, like removing the jokes. I don't train differently, but the way you race these is very different. It it's it becomes more an hybrid to me, at least, and it depends always on your speed, but it's more an hybrid of, yeah, I guess ultra running, but mostly multi-day hiking. And it's just that you rest a little bit less, but it's a lot of walking, and it's much more about trying to be sustainable. You should find a way to keep your speed throughout the whole adventure, which means sleeping more, which means resting more, which means eating more, and which means going much slower. Like there's no rush ever, because next aid station, you're gonna stay there for like 3 hours anyway. So why didn't you take the time to wash your hand when you peed? You know, like there's no rush. If I run a marathon, like maybe I wouldn't wash my hands, because 5 seconds is really important. For a 200-mile, who cares? And because I'm doing so many of them, then it's really important also to not go in the red too much, not destroy my body too much. So then it goes back to really focusing a lot on recovery. The reason I'm doing it is just, it's the classic one, I think, right now in terms of 200-miler. But I'm actually doing a lot of other races in the 200 miles. So I'll be doing Cocodona 250 in a few weeks from now. So 250 miles. And then at the end of No, actually, I think it's before Moab. Yeah, it's before Moab. I'm doing Swiss 360, which is in kilometers, so it's like around 200 or 220 mile, I think, in the Alps, which is a very, very challenging race. So this year I'm definitely doing longer races, which means just more recovery, I think, more vacation day. But yeah, nothing too crazy when it comes to training. But thinking more about logistic a little bit will be important also. I tend to race these solo because it's a little easier to ask my wife to come along for the weekend and crew me and pace me. But if it's for a full week, I mean, we still have to work, so it's not as fun to stay and just not do anything. So most likely I race by myself, but you're out for like a week, so you have to think a little bit more about logistic. Do you need a new pair of shoes at mile 100? Do you need socks? Do you need extra clothing? It's changing climate. Cocodona is also one of those that you start in the desert around Phoenix. It's hot as balls down there. But when you finish the race, you're close to Flagstaff. You go all up to, I think, 9,000 or some 10,000 feet in the mountain. There's snow sometimes. So the climate is so different that you need to think about your drop bag strategically. You don't want to carry your winter gear in the desert, but you also don't want to not have it when the time comes. So you need to research the race a little bit more, think about logistic a little bit more. Body-wise, I think it's pretty similar. In fact, I think it's easier, arguably, but logistic, dealing with sleepiness, these sorts of things, that's where it's a little bit harder.
So community and crew support are essential to a race. Being popular and having a great atmosphere. Which races do you, or which race, to make this more of a specific question, have you found has the best environment, community feeling?
I mean, come on, man. That's a harsh one. I cannot just name one because there's so many that will say, "Well, what about me?" So I'm gonna name like a few. And if we really focus on the community, not necessarily the race itself, because sometimes it's a balance. But I think Hurt 100 in Hawaii was just like great. Like you really felt welcome, and you felt like you were coming in the trail community of Hawaii. So Hurt 100 was fantastic. I think a lot of RFI race has a pretty good vibe. Like they have a good crew of people organizing the race, but that leads to like they're really part of the community, and you can feel that like runners from around that place will come and hang out. And I'm blanking out definitely a lot. One that is a small race that I really liked, and that's true for a lot of those small race, like these race director that really do a one-off, like they do one race and like that's not their job. Usually then they bring their neighbor and like their cousin is doing that aid station, and like it's just a very family vibe. And because it's usually smaller races, you kind of get to meet them and interact with them. So then it becomes very personal as opposed to corporate, which is a great feeling. Yeah, I'll stick to that, and then other will come to mind very quickly. But I have yet. I think we can talk in the negative. I only have one race that I was like, man, like, this is so bad. I'm not gonna name it, but I think anyone who's seen the video probably has noticed. I was like, this is not the best volunteers I've ever experienced. Like that was the exception. That was very much the exception. But otherwise, it's always a good experience.
So you've raced all over the world. Any really standout scenic races in particular, or adventures?
Yeah, and it's funny because I don't think I've raced so much all around the world, although technically yes, but for the longest time I couldn't travel outside of the US because of passport issue. That's like I think it's last year only that I finally got my passport. So it gives the impression that I've traveled a lot, but not necessarily. But I've been to Japan, which is a fair point. I've been to Ile de la Réunion, which is really, really, really far. It's the furthest on earth I could be. And I've been in the Italian Alps. So like this is the three big one that I've done abroad. In terms of scenic, I think Tour des Géants in the Italian Alps is absolutely wonderful. It's close to Tour du Mont Blanc. Really, really special race for sure. For the scenery, it's really wow. And if you're more used to the US scene, it's very different. Like when you're in the Alps, you go up like a super high mountain pass. It's very wild, and then you go down for 3 miles and you're in the town, like a big town already, and then you do that rinse and repeat all the time. Whereas when you do a race in the US, you could be running for 50 miles and not see a single soul. So it's very, very different. I don't know that I prefer one or the other, but I like the change a little bit, and that felt cool. Like that, it felt cool to go through these small towns in the mountain, and old village. The rock kind of sidewalk, not even sidewalk, but roads. That was really cool. Otherwise, I really like Zion 100 Mile. It's not in the Zion National Park, but I really like how much scenery you have all the time. You're always on these mesa, like kind of cliff, and you can see really far away the whole way. So it's absolutely wonderful. And then the San Juan in the Southwest Colorado. So I did Uray 100, which is basically where Hard Rock is, and it's also, mountains are pretty similar to what you would see in Europe. Like it's high mountain above tree line. That's also very, very special kind of scenery that really speaks to me.
So I'd love to shift here and talk about your YouTube channel. What inspired you to start that?
Yeah, it came in different wave. I think I've always wondered, hey, like I'm running 100 mile, like that's cool. I should make a movie about that, but I didn't have the time or didn't care so much. The kind of thing that pushed me over the edge to actually do it is silly, but one year I was doing the Grand Slam, which is similar to the Triple Crown, but it's 4 of the 5 oldest 100 mile in the US that you do in 1 year, and then you get a little trophy. But to do that, I had to do the Leadman also, which the Leadman is Leadville 100 mile, but also they have other races. So you have Leadville 100 mile mountain biking and 50 mile. So you have to do all that through the summer. So I was doing both of that, it's a busy schedule. Anyway, all that to say, I'm not a mountain biker, but that was the only way I could get into Leadville that year. And then you have to do Leadville 100 mile mountain biking, which is a pretty tough race. It would be like asking a non-runner to go run Leadville 100 mile, and you have like 5 months to prepare. Like it's a tough ask. It's not easy. So I was researching like beginner Leadville 100 mile, and then I randomly stumbled upon 2 pro racer that got some funding to train up 3 novice rider to do Leadville 100 mile. I was like, hey, this is perfect. Like, I think I have a unique profile of a guy that has the endurance background but doesn't know anything about mountain biking, and I'm sure that they're going to pick someone also who maybe has experienced mountain biking but doesn't have the fitness. So like I felt I would be part like of a spectrum that could be interesting. So I took the time to make a good movie introducing myself. Of course, it didn't pick me, but I was like, well, now I know how to do video. So then I just picked up my GoPro for the next race, and then I just did that. And I've always liked photography. So in terms of like having good image composition or understanding like how these things work, I already had it. Then it was more a matter of what's the style that I want, like what's the story that I want to tell. And being a consumer myself of YouTube channel and what's out there in social media, I've always been more attracted to first long form content. I think, TikTok, Instagram Reels, it's cute, but like I don't know, I'm not 14 years old anymore. Like I want something that's a little bit more subtle, a little bit less fake. So I want something that was real, honest. And look, if you cannot listen to my movie that is 30 minutes, like it's too bad. Like I wish I was able to do nice short. Like I think it's a skill and some people are really good. I don't think that's what I wanted to do. So then I focus on long form content. And the more I did it, obviously people were inspired by that. Like they like the style, they like the humor. Like I'm no filter. I just make joke. I make movie reference. I don't have the best, camera gear or anything. Like sometimes I do when I take the time to do something nice, but usually it's just, I want you to feel like you're running with me. And what that means is sometimes you're on a high and you're happy and I'm joking and this is fun. And sometimes I'm just bitching and I'm just like, this is tough. And I just shit myself and I have blisters. And I could try to pretend that I'm super tough and I'm not bothered by that, but that's not true. Like sometimes I'm like, what am I doing? Like I don't like that. And sometimes I'm happy. So I want to share that so that people feel how it is. I also want it to be as transparent as possible. I'm not an athlete. I work more than full time. I'm busy. Most people are. And when you look from outside and you hear people, and I'm sorry for naming him again, but you hear people like Goggin, you think like, oh, you have to be like Goggin to run Leadville 100 miles. You have to be hardcore. You have to go through rhabdomyolysis and almost die to run Leadville. Like that's how hardcore you need to be. I was like, no, like you can also just be a normal guy, stop at the aid station, play with dogs, and then you leave with a smile. Like that's okay. It's not just for hardcore people. It's for people also who just want to enjoy it. Doesn't mean it's easy, but it's easier than a lot of people think, and it's more accessible than a lot of people think. So that's the angle that I've always tried to have. And the more I inspire people, the more question comes in. Like people's like, well, how do you do this? How do you do that? And that's normal. I think if you want to do these things, you have to be informed. And I was never consuming so much myself, like tip videos, but I started looking a little bit more when people were asking me questions, and some of them are so bad. Like it's just, you don't know what you're talking about right now, and you're making a video about that and you're putting it out there. I feel it's a little bit irresponsible. So I felt, okay, like I actually know a thing or two. Let's share how I do it. And I know there's different methods, and sometimes it's a matter of opinion, and I try to not overstate that. But trying to focus on healthy practice that will help people be successful, help people that are average actually make these things and push their own limit. So now that's the angle that I go a little bit with my tip video, things that are helpful, are accessible, and also like no bullshit. So that's that's what inspired me, and it's working great. It's a lot of time, it's a lot of work, but it's always very rewarding. You go to a race and then like people stop you and say, hey, Simon, like I'm here thanks to you. Like I didn't think I could do that, and I've trained for it, and hopefully I have a good day today. And and I follow them. Like we run together, and since I'm not fast, like we're gonna leapfrog, and I'm always like rooting for them because I feel responsible also sometimes. I don't want them to blow up, but the reality is sometimes it happens. But yeah, it's great, and it's a great way to meet more people, and it's a great way also, I think, to give back to the community. I've received a lot from a lot of people out there, and just being out there volunteering is a way to give back. But I felt I also have the knowledge right now to help people, to inspire people, and that's a way for me to be a positive change in the scene, and hopefully move things in the right direction, like people helping each other, people being nice to each other, people not overtraining, people not getting injured as much, and reaching your own goal, but also not feeling, oh, you only run 50K. 50K is so little. Like I run 100 miles all the time. Like that's just crap. But people are like that. And I hope through my videos that people realize that you shouldn't feel bad about these things. Like people that would say that have a lot of insecurities. and everyone is welcome, but that kind of talking is crap. Like don't minimize anyone's achievement and celebrate everyone. So that's the vibe, I would say.
I really like how you add commentary throughout your videos. Like you said, you want them to feel like they're running with you. When you have to, or better said, when you take out the camera every like mile and give a comment or do something like that, is it a distraction or do you welcome it? Like, do you rather play mind games with yourself or prefer to be in the moment? I remember in your long haul video, you said, this is the last lap. That's not the last lap. Like that's a mind game right there. Just always trying to.
Yeah. I mean, the last lap before it's the last lap is that works well for me. Because I don't want to say, oh man, like there's still so much to go. It's a really good question. So first of all, I think when you kind of mentioned it, I really try as much as possible to not have, or basically to everything you will see in the movie happen through the race. Like, of course, I do a little bit before, a little bit after, but like the race is the race. Whatever I say is what I felt at the time. And a lot of people won't necessarily do it like that. And people that I respect and I think their movies are great, like Jeff Peltier, for example, he has beautiful movies, but he will usually do a voiceover commentary. Like after the race, he will say, mile 15 to 30, like I was really struggling in that climb. And I think that's the style that is really nice. And it feels a little bit more documentary, like a little bit more like an observer. I want to be like, I'm in it right now. How do I feel? What do I think about saying? But that's way easier said than done, because at the beginning of the race, it's easy. You take out your camera, you say something, like everyone does that. Everyone that does movie is able to do that. It's the middle of the night. I'm sleepwalking. Like I'm not even aware of what's going on right now. Thinking of taking the camera and saying something is really not easy. Like, you don't think about that. And even sometimes when I have fun at long haul, I was hanging out with my friend Fanny. We ran like 45 miles together, sometimes on and off, but we're talking. I don't want to film when I'm talking with her. So in that case, it would have been a distraction, and then I just don't film. Like, my priority is still to enjoy what I'm doing. So it's not really like a positive distraction, but usually it's not a huge distraction. Like, usually I just, like you said, I do a little, I say a word every 3 miles, and it takes 5 seconds. I just take the camera, I say, okay, mile 3, feeling excited, and I try to not think about it. I try to, as soon as I think, hey, it's been about 3 miles, it's time to record it, I take the camera and I do it. I don't want to be like, oh, what should I be saying right now? And like trying to be creative or quirky or anything. It's like, no, like, what comes to mind right now? And sometimes it's bad, like sometimes like, oh, blisters, or oh, like sun. But sometimes it's a little bit more profound. And even myself, I like rewatching these before making my longer movie, because I can really feel the flow of how I'm doing. Like, if I say things like happy, smiling, trail, beautiful, like, I'm in a good mood now. And then at some point it's like, blister, it's cold, I'm tired, I want to sleep. And it's like, oh, Simon, you were struggling through that period, and it's so unfiltered that, like, it's raw. So I wouldn't say it's a positive distraction, but it's not so cumbersome most of the time. And I think I do a good job of actually filming at night. A lot of movie that I see, then if they're doing everything through the movie and not afterwards, or they don't have a cameraman or anything, like it's a one-man band like I do, like the night is like 2 minutes of their movie. It's like the nightfall, and then it's the sunrise again, and you're like, what happened through the night? It's like, yeah, well, I guess they were sleepy or didn't feel in the mood for filming, which I totally relate. Like, I would never blame someone for not being able to do it, because it's not easy. It's not easy to even remember, and it's not easy to want to do it, but it's part of it.
You just mentioned that you rewatch your videos before you promote them or push them live. Do you ever learn things about the race that you never thought of during the race itself? Like, reflecting back?
If you mean, well, I learned a lot of things about the race after having raced it, because sometimes I just don't have time to do the research. Rewatching the movie, by the time the movie is together, like, I know everything about it. Then it's more like a quality check, and what's the flow a little bit, and like tweaking things. It's more adjustment, but throughout the editing, which, like, that's what takes like 10-20 hours, it helps reset a little bit expectation, or not expectation, but your memory. Like, our memories, we think we remember stuff, but sometimes we don't so well. And maybe I'll be like, for example, the last race last weekend, I'm like, well, I really struggled through the night. That's my impression right now. Like, I feel I've struggled through most of the night, but I'll watch the movie while I'm making it, right? Like, I'll watch the clips basically, and I'll put it together. And maybe when I do that, I'll realize that actually I really struggled through mile like 80 to 85, but I really struggled through that. But the rest of the night was fine, and I just don't remember that because nothing eventful happened. But I'm still filming regularly, so I can keep track of that. Whereas there's been race, I'm like, oh yeah, like I really struggled for that one climb. And then I watch again the movie, and it's like, oh, I don't think I actually enjoyed that. Like, the whole race, I was not in a good mood, and I can tell it through the movies. And then it's like, oh yeah, that's right. And the last part I would say that I think is weird, and it also comes back to what happened and what's reality. Like, I think we have a sense of memory that we think we remember, but, and I'm kind of double saying that, I guess, but things that I have filmed, I'm much more likely to remember them in the future. And maybe it's because I've rewatched the clip, and then in my brain it will come back. But if if I film a specific climb that was really challenging, I will remember it, and I will very much remember it. Whereas races that I've done before, for example, making movies, I barely remember them. Like, it's pretty vague for me. Like, I don't really remember Burning River, for example, at all. Whereas if I had a film about it, my brain would be able to remember it without even watching the movie all the time. Like, I would just remember it. So yeah, so that's what changed about it. But detail about the race, not necessarily.
So where do you see ultra running and trail running going in the next, say, 10 years?
Um, am I wearing my happy hat or my negative hat? My happy hat is that I think a lot of people like me are helping promote the sport and making it more accessible. So I think there's um, higher access to it, and race organization see that, understand that. And if you compare like the old races, like the Leadville, for example, to newer races, just if you look at the cutoff, Leadville is pretty aggressive. 30 hours for that course. It's like, man, you kind of have to run, actually. Like, even for me, every time it's like, I hope I have a good day, otherwise I'm gonna DNF. But newer races tend to be, for the same course, Leadville would be 36 hours. And I think this is great. Like, you don't have to be in the best shape. You just have to do the distance. And that makes it more accessible, because it's very uncomfortable to always have like the back of your neck, like the cutoff, like just behind you all the time. And these things are changing. So the sport is growing and being more accessible to people that are maybe not as fit and are getting there, and it becomes less intimidating. I think that's great. On the flip side, if we think negative a little bit, I think it's getting a little bit more professional, which is not necessarily a bad thing by itself. But one of the things that I've always appreciated is I can go talk to Courtney at the starting line, and she will respond. And we're not equal, but she won't treat me like she's better than me. And I've always loved that, like the pros and the big figures and shit. Like, I mean, nowadays, I guess like people recognize me and people feel that they can come talk to me. And I would never want to be like, there's the important people and there's the schmucks, like we're all in this together. And of course, there will always be a little bit of difference, but the accessibility of the pros and the relatability of the pros felt great. But I think this will change eventually as it get more and more professional, as there's more and more money, more sponsors, even just big time influencer. Like I don't consider myself an influencer at all, but like when I think influencer, I think like, I don't want to name names, but like people that have like a film crew of 4 or 5 people and just take all the place, and they come in with a lot of money and they clearly push product all the time. And that to me pushes or diverge from the key message of like being a welcoming sport and kind of dirt sport a little bit. I wish they would just stick to marathon. Like that's what I want, or triathlon. But I don't think that's the direction it's going to go. I think it's going to grow. I think race organization are getting bigger and bigger. There's more and more controversy lately, which is too bad. Like I wish we would come by a little bit more. But we'll see. I think one does not prevent the other, and the money is not necessarily a bad thing. Like I'm happy that people can make a living out of that. Like I'm happy that race director can exist. I'm happy that shoe company can make better shoes. Like all of these things are good as long as you don't have a 2-speed system. That's what I would be a little bit more worried, like kind of elitism happening a little bit, and exclusivity a little bit is not the direction that I want it to go. We'll see, and hopefully there's agent of change or of not change that happen to exist, and we'll push in that direction, because it's a wonderful community and I don't want it to change. And even just saying it, having raced abroad, I can see the difference. I think the Japanese community was a great running community. I think Italian was all right, but there's another one that I was like, I think these people are really different than how we perceive racing in the US. And that's too bad a little bit, like a little bit more self-centered, a little bit more aggressive, a little bit more competitive. Just details, for example, if we're running on the same trail in a race and someone is faster than me and coming from behind, I'll move aside and I'll let them go and say, hey, have a good one. They would not do that there. And in fact, I asked someone very politely once, can I just squeeze by? And it was like, no. I was like, what do you mean? Like, we're mid-pack right now. Like we're not winning anything. Like just that was just bizarre, and I really hope it doesn't go that direction.
Well said. What would you say to somebody who is interested in running an ultra marathon or getting into trail running?
I mean, just do it. The short answer is just do it. Don't be scared about it. It's very accessible. Like I hate saying things like everyone can do it, because I guess there are some people that unfortunately cannot, but it's way more accessible than people think. There's people of all age. You're never too young, I guess. If you're 1 year old, maybe not, but you're never too young, you're never too old. But understanding what you can and cannot do is important. Like, I won't win UTMB, and you won't win UTMB, and that's not, I'm not throwing dirt at you. You won't win UTMB. That's okay. But can you do UTMB? Yeah, maybe. And taking training seriously, I think, is important also, because for a lot of people, race day is kind of the celebration. It's probably the toughest thing you'll do, but at the same time, it's the funnest thing you will do. What I think is really tough is to have consistent training and accept the fact that, I'm going to run on a treadmill. It's going to be 10 miles. It's going to be so boring, but you have to do it to be prepared. And if you train well, that's where you can see real change in yourself. If you're thinking about becoming more fit, losing weight, or any positive change, race day doesn't matter. I hate the trend. And we go back to influencer of like, I ran a marathon and I didn't train. Like, it's like, okay, like, then you didn't change anything. Like, what's your point? And for sure, the marathon that you're going to do, or ultra marathon that you're going to do without training, higher risk of failing. It won't be as fun for sure, because you're struggling more. You're more likely to get injured, and you're less likely to have this become a thing for you, to have many positive experience, to come back for more. Like, if you go and do it one and done, then you're one and done. You're not really a trail, but you are a trail runner, but you never reach that point where it's fun, where you're part of the community, where you bring something and you're receiving something from it. You just came in and out. So preparing seriously, but also having fun, never losing that, I think, is important.
Well, Simon, I just want to say thank you for sharing your running journey with us today. It's inspiring and really shows what we can do with our bodies when properly prepared. Thank you for making the time, and good luck with the rest of your races this year.
Thank you, and thanks for having me.
My pleasure. Have a good day.